I am delighted to welcome the man who was described as the teenage Pavarotti in his time. He rose to stardom, of course, through Britain's Got Talent, and he hasn't rested on his laurels ever since that first album, Tenore, went straight to #1 on the classical charts. After a string of performances across the UK, he's now announced his second solo album, Believe, and it's an amazing album too. I've been listening to it over the past few days, and I'm delighted to have John with us live in the studio. Jonathan Antoine, welcome back. How are you, mate?
Thank you for having me.
Well, you're more than welcome. We were just talking about Pokemon Go, but maybe that's for another show.
Yeah, that's for the tech show.
Yes, exactly. But we'll do another album on that.
Our new offshoot show that we're going to start.
We'll work on that for later, I suppose. Welcome back, mate. Congratulations on the album.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
I mean, it's incredible to think about Tenore when that came out, and I think what you said to me at the time, it was a big surprise for you, wasn't it, just how big that album went?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people seem to really enjoy it, and a fair few of them bought it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, you know, that's kind of all I can ever ask for as an artist, for people to buy and enjoy the things that I make. Well, if they buy it, that's supporting me, and that's crazy, right? The fact that someone would, you know, I and a group of people made this thing, and people would actually put money towards that. And for all those who did, and for all those who consider it, thank you so much.
Yeah, and of course, for you, it's been an amazing adventure already. You've played just about everywhere, and without sort of going through your biography too much, I don't want to sort of tread on old ground, but it is, I mean, an amazing thing. I mean, we've talked before about the people that you've sung with. For you, so far in your career, what have been your highlights?
Oh man, I get asked this question fairly often, and yet I never have an answer prepared. Man, I mean, the very first show when we started Britain's Got Talent, that was incredible. There was a show in Monaco that was shortly after that was remarkable. There were fireworks, and the roof opened up. I did the iTunes Festival in 2014 and got to share the stage, not singing, but even interacting with Placido Domingo, which was mind-blowing and earth-shattering.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've made 4 albums now, and each one of those has been an incredibly special experience to me.
Yeah, and making an album is a very interesting process. I mean, particularly for you, because you have this huge canon of work to look at and to take from. So where do you go deciding what it is you're going to put on that album?
That's very true. There are almost thousands of years of options, let alone the options themselves. But more often than not, the correct options just spring to us, and in this case, with the team that we've had behind the album, it really just came together like that. We had one meeting, and we had a track list, and that seems to be how it goes fairly often for albums that I create. I suppose because I'm really easy with what I like to make, and if I have the opportunity to make anything that's fun and that springs out at me, I'll grab it.
Yeah, and it's great to hear you using the word fun as well, because for many years classical music had a kind of a stuffy image to a degree, didn't it? And it put many people off, I think, especially as children, when you want to get children involved, and that seems to have changed a lot these days.
Yeah, I was in fact just talking about this earlier with a friend of mine, and I'm finding it so encouraging, the way that art is going at present and the way that creative media are heading. I think that people have grown very tired of sort of stagnant, formulaic kind of things, and for me, I personally believe, and this may just be my optimism blinding me, I believe that there is some kind of renaissance in the works and a revolution for the creative industry, and I'm very excited. Somewhere within the next 15 to 100 years, I'd say. But yeah, I am genuinely hopeful, and I believe that art as a whole, as a medium, is moving in a positive direction.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, we're going to play one of the tracks from your album in just a second or two. Stay with us. Jonathan Antoine, live in the studio here at BBC Essex. Jonathan Antoine with me. His brand new album, Believe, is out soon. The 19th, I believe, is the release date.
19th of August.
So before all that, let's hear a track, shall we? The track I've chosen to play is, I believe if you download it now, you can get this track as a little bit of a sample, can't you?
You can indeed. It is a download now if you pre-order. This is Bring Him Home.
Here it comes.
He's like the sun I might have known if God had granted me a son. The summers die one by one, how soon they fly on and on, and I am old and will be gone. Bring him peace, bring him joy. He is young, he is only a boy. You can take, you can give, let him be, let him live. If I die, let me die. Let him live. Bring him home. Bring him
Jonathan Antoine, Bring Him Home from Les Mis, from the brand new album Believe, out on the 19th of August, and Jonathan's with me this afternoon. It's a beautiful song, it really is.
Well,
and
thank you very much.
I mean, it's an amazing song to tackle, because it's been sung by many people over the years, and it's seen as one of the pivotal moments in Les Mis, isn't it, really?
For sure.
Why that particular track on the album?
Probably precisely for that reason, really. It's the biggest track, I suppose, the most well-known, and for me, not only that, I've been singing it since I was 14, so
Yeah.
it's been 7, maybe even 8 years by now that I've been going over this song over and over again, and I thought it was about time to place it down on record and have a sort of definitive, my own version.
It's interesting you should say that, because we were talking there about choosing tracks for an album, and I'm always interested to know whether you there are certain tracks that maybe you sing in the privacy of your own home, and you think, no, I'm not quite ready for that yet? Are there songs that you've kind of got on your wish list that you sort of work on or anything like that? Or is it a case of anything goes at this point in your career?
That is an interesting question. I mean, there's nothing that I've started to learn of my own volition that I'd want to perform in a classical sense, but there's a ton of material that I'd love to do. I mean, something like Nessun Dorma, which is the classic, I've still not done because I'm waiting. I'm waiting until I feel completely comfortable that I would be able to deliver a rendition that would at least impress people, as opposed to just being another version.
Yeah.
But in terms of singing stuff at home, I usually get the stuff that I've recorded stuck in my head for so long. I'm mostly singing the new tracks from the album.
Yeah. Isn't it strange how you probably get those favourites? They become earworms almost to you, don't they, really? Plus, of course, that many of the tracks are not in the English language. Let's talk a little bit about that, because you really have to be very up on whatever language. I mean, mostly Italian, I suppose, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I personally do not speak a lick of Italian, which is probably some kind of sacrilege. But we did have a fantastic Italian coach throughout the entire production of the album, and people say that I have a decent grasp of how to pronounce the general way that Italians would pronounce things.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of that and the remarkable training that makes it all come together in quite a nice way. I think that there's been a few Italian people who've said that they can actually understand the things that I'm saying, and that's crazy because I personally can't understand it.
Funny. It's the ultimate accolade, isn't it? If an Italian person comes up to you and you say, "Oh, yeah, the way you said it was beautiful. It was very poignant." You think, that job done, really, isn't
remarkable,
it?
yeah. Just to...
And talking about all these things coming together, I noticed that on the album here, you've also got the London Studio Symphony, and you've got some great backing vocals as well. You've got the choir. Is it St Paul's Girls' School?
Yeah.
What does it feel like when you hear the final product coming through the speakers? Because you've vocalised it, and then all of a sudden you hear the finished article.
Well, it was peculiar the way that we did this album, because for the initial orchestral tracks, I was actually in the room.
Right.
I was in a kind of a booth just behind the orchestra, singing the tracks so that they could create the orchestration around my performance.
Wow.
It was slightly strenuous, I will say, but to have that immediate feedback at all times was incredible. And every time that I create an album, I go through a completely different process. I've found the first albums were very much separated because we'd only sort of just joined the industry. And we weren't quite sure what our boundaries were, I suppose. And then with Tenore, the vocals were all recorded in a church. The reverb was completely natural. There were no additional effects on the vocals. And then this time, this process with the orchestra in the room, literally, has just been mind-blowing. I mean, with an orchestra that plays that well and that precisely and with that much feeling as well, it really has made this an incredibly special product, I think.
Yeah. God, talk about shivers down the spine there when you've got a full orchestra and you're in a booth.
Goodness, yes.
And they're basically listening to you and they're playing around you.
Yeah,
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, we were all working together. We had this remarkable symbiosis with the conductor, of course, who helped massively. It was just so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember Frank Sinatra talking about that in an old interview, and he was talking about the first time that he got to actually play with an orchestra. Because everybody did, of course, back in the Capitol years, for instance. You would have Nelson Riddle and the orchestra around Frank, so it would be like an arc of musicians, and him in the middle with this huge cast iron, Capitol microphone, and that was how they did it. And that must have been the same sort of feeling for you. You were in the middle of all of this that was going on.
Yeah, it was very much like that, and I was just dazzled at the quality and the way it all came together so quickly, and it just worked straight away like that. And yeah, my thanks are extended to the nth degree to the orchestra and conductor, who just did a fantastic job.
So what's next for you now then? Because the album comes out on the 19th, as we mentioned earlier on. Then do you tour with that?
Well, there will be a show on album release date at Gawsworth Hall, August 19th, in case you're wondering.
Tickets available now.
But in terms of a legitimate tour that will travel the country, we're in talks. That's what I'll say at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm in talks with agents, and
Great.
yeah, with luck.
Well, all I can say is if Twitter is any yardstick, we have got people listening all over the world
Crazy,
today.
right?
I mean, really incredible. I can mention a few locations. I know we have listeners in New York at the moment, in, more importantly, West Yorkshire.
Hey, beautiful.
And in fact, you know, in China, in Australia, in New Zealand, all over the world listening.
I think the
today.
only continent we've not got is Antarctica.
Yeah, maybe. If you're listening in Antarctica, could you send us a tweet? You're on Twitter. You are at John Antoine.
Yes,
Is that
Jon.
right? Jon.
John Antoine.
Antoine. And you can follow what John is up to, and indeed more on the album as well on there. And if people want to get pre-order a copy, it's up for pre-order now. I think you get Bring Him Home straight away.
And Canta Per Me, which is another track from the album. You get 2 as soon as you pre-order it. Come on, people.
How about that? You can't go wrong, really. It's always a pleasure having you in the studio, Jonathan. Thank you so much for being with me. And all the very best to you. And good luck with the album. And come back and see us again soon, won't you?
Of course, I will. Love
All the
it.
best. Take care, mate.
Beautiful.
Cheers for now.
Thank you.